Every time I argue with these liberals, they immediately start stating their credentials and telling me their degrees. Like when I tell you, it happens every time. They will immediately start telling me all their degrees, where they've studied and where they've traveled, and they just start going down this long list of credentials that I don't care about. I literally asked this woman, I was like, she commented and she says, DEI is responsible for maternity leave. And I was like, hey, have you ever actually been on maternity leave, and have you ever actually had kids? Her answer is no and no. But I've written a dissertation on social services. I wrote a paper on it because I wrote a paper on it.
This woman is actually pretty funny. You know what's so funny about that? And I always like to give, of course, credit to the content creators. So that link will be down in the description, regardless of whether I agree with them or not. I always like to give credit to the content creators, and make sure y'all tap into the Patreon, because we just did a live stream, and then I got a new Patreon video that I'm dropping this weekend. And that's pretty awesome. But we did Stock Club this past week, and it was pretty awesome, and everybody enjoyed it. Everybody loved it. And I basically broke down all of the different things that we look for when we look to invest in a company. We went through based off of the industry today. Yeah, get that. But to get back to her point, I have an aunt, and a lot of people that watch me on the Millionaire Morning Show know that I have a pretty liberal family. As a matter of fact, I'm one of the only people in my family that don't vote liberal, right? I vote Republican. And we were raised conservative, but for whatever reason, my extended family is still on the Democratic plantation. And I had an aunt, shout out to her. I would never name her because she's such a sweet woman. But I had an aunt, and she was basically a lifetime student. And when I say a lifetime student, I'm not talking about learning. I'm talking about being enrolled, but it never, ever, ever translated. And I'm just being transparent. It never translated into actual real money or a higher position or better circumstance. You know what it translated into? More debt. And part of the reason that I believe that she stayed enrolled was also so that she would never have to start paying back her student loans. That is the honest to God truth on everything. On everything. And it's crazy to think about, right? Because I see women online. I don't see men. Now, let's be clear, because it's a lot of simping men that follow women to the polls. And I'm going to play this whole video in its entirety, from front to back so we can get the full context. I don't see men that are enrolled or educated or whatever. I've even seen white women cake for black women and say, well, DEI ain't going to affect them because they are the ones that got all of the degrees. And then you hear the music in the background. Then they show all of their degrees in the back and stuff. They be so broke. They so broke. They be so broke. And they don't have no real lived experience. All they have is papers and dissertations and African American study degrees, and I'm a master of social services and all of that stuff. And they still are behind the enemy line, and they keep talking about all this money that they get in, and the census is saying different. The data and the statistics, payroll services is saying different. And your your degree, and shout out to you for getting, a degree. And it's nothing wrong with getting educated, but you can't hang that over our head because you're still broke. You still broke. You still online talking about you want a provider, man. And all of this, you ain't trying to go 50-50. Oh, my God, I got to go back in because the federal government is saying workers got to go back into the office. Oh, my God. And we don't want to hear that shit. We don't want to hear none of that. We just want you to do what you got to do, because I don't see no men, even though a huge percentage of black men actually follow black women to the poll because they identity politics. But I want you to go ahead and make sure that you go ahead and level up. And if you that great, and if you so awesome at what you do, you don't have to justify it by telling us what your degree is. You will just show it. You'll just show how great you are in it, and we'll just assume that you are a very educated woman. But let me play it from the beginning because I always like to get the full context of the video. I like that. I like it. And we're going to go from there.
Every time I argue with these liberals, they immediately start stating their credentials and telling me their degrees. Like when I tell you, it happens every time. They will immediately start telling me all their degrees, where they've studied and where they've traveled, and they just start going down this long list of credentials that I don't care about. I literally asked this woman, I was like, she commented and she says, DEI is responsible for maternity leave. And I was like, hey, have you ever actually been on maternity leave? And have you ever actually had kids? Her answer is no and no. But
they definitely make sure that they don't have no kids. They so focused on their degrees.
A dissertation on social services. I wrote a paper on it because I wrote a paper on it. I know what it's like. Well, baby, I have 4 kids. And most people don't even make it to 4 kids. I've had 4 babies. And I've been on maternity leave. And let me tell you, it freaking sucks. Because for a couple weeks of it, depending on how bad it is, some jobs have a good one and some have a, hey, we're going to pay you for half, but not the other half. And your job, we're going to keep a role for you, but it may not be your exact role. That's why I became an entrepreneur, because I couldn't keep playing around with employers in maternity leaves.
Oh, you eat what you kill. Get it then, baby.
I've worked for women-owned companies and they still had terrible maternity leaves with DEI in place. So DEI did not make maternity leave great. So your little funky paper you wrote, your study tours focused on social service, have a master's in public policy. Who cares? Your master's in public policy is not going to prepare you for having kids.
She cooking, ain't she? I like this girl.
I guarantee the moment you have children, if you ever do, okay, find somebody to marry you. You find somebody to marry you. And if you ever have kids, let me know how that master's in public policy helps you when it comes to navigating the day-to-day of raising children.
Yeah. Don't tell me that the 7%. That's what I'm going to start. I'm not even going to cite the 93% of women that voted for Kamala Harris anymore. I'm going to say, shout out to the 7%. That's what we rolling with now. The 7% is what we shouting out and what we rolling with. Shout out to the 7%ers. That is a 7% of women that actually have some sense and they can think logically behind whatever they're educated in, and they actually can substantiate their argument, and they have real life experience, and they combine that with what it is that they see from the data and the statistics and maybe a little bit of education, but they mix it all into the two in order to justify it. Let me ask y'all a question. Why is it that it's only women? I see a couple straggler men. We know who they are, whatever. Most of them went to HBCUs, whatever. How come it's only women, Roland Martin, Al Sharpton, and a couple of straggler simp men that's arguing for DEI? Let me ask the guys, and y'all let me know inside of the chat. How much has DEI changed your circumstance once Trump got in office and he abolished it through executive order? I'm not even going to comment on it. I just want to hear what y'all got to say in the comments so that we can have a more effective conversation and really, because just because you don't want to shop at Target no more don't mean nothing to us. We don't care nothing about that. Just because you don't want to shop at Target, we not tripping at that. Just because you don't want to go to Walmart, lies. That don't mean nothing to us. Just because I remember when y'all said y'all was going to boycott Gucci. I ain't boycotting Gucci. I like Gucci. Gucci reminds me of that 80s fly, you know what I'm saying? And rolling out. I'm rolling with Gucci. I don't care nothing about what you talking about, man. You don't even know who own these companies. You don't even know who the majority shareholders are. You just talking. Only thing you got is consumerism. That's it. But I genuinely want to know what y'all think inside of the comments. This woman is cooking. Again, I'm always going to leave a link back to their profile to give credit to the content creators. I want to know what y'all think about women that have a whole lot of degrees instead of having real lived experiences, don't have no children, and then want to use those degrees to try to justify in these liberal liberation camps. Not even liberation camps, indoctrination camps. Maybe I should have got a degree, right? I got mine. In these indoctrination camps, on these campuses that teach y'all on diversity, equity, and inclusion, and African American studies and basking weaving underwater. Let me know what y'all think about it. Make sure y'all tap into the Patreon. Link is in the description. I love y'all. I appreciate y'all. I'm going to check the comments shortly. Peace.